everybody, and welcome to the Good Stories Podcast. Thanks for joining us. I'm sitting here with my brother, Steven. My name's Jody, and for some reason, I just flipped around the usual order I say things. So that's a little weird, and I guess it's bound to be an exciting episode. I'm happy to say that yesterday we posted a short story on our Patreon, which we had not done in quite some time. I think our last one was back in December, and it was really fun. So I wanted to call those out. This one was a little longer for a short story, but we try to do 30 minutes or less. This one was on knots, but we've talked about other random things like history and poetry. And I think the first one we did was Stephen's Pillars of Coffee, the coffee pillars.
It may have been the pillars of coffee drinking.
Which are excellent, I think.
I think they hold up.
So if you want to hear the short stories, you have to go to Patreon. I'm sorry. That's where I can post them. So our episodes go there as well as short stuff. So that's patreon.com/goodstoriespodcast. And yeah, I think they're fun. I really enjoyed the knots one. We talked about Stevens, and many people in our families love of knots in our family.
I enjoy talking about knots.
So there's that. And I also want to say hi to our top 5 new download locations this week. So hello out there to all you in Goose Creek, South Carolina, Oneonta, New York, Barberton, Ohio, Lidditz, Pennsylvania, and Rudaport, South Africa. I actually checked how to say Rudaport, expecting it to be complicated. It's just like it's spelled. Rudaport, South Africa.
Convenient.
According to Google. Okay, so today's story is both a book and a movie. At least for myself, I am far more familiar with the movie, and we read the book for this podcast. So it's been an adventure, and while there's a lot that's the same about the movie, there's a lot that's different about the book. And so I'll read the title of my book in my hand. The Princess Bride, S. Morgenstern's classic tale of true love and high adventure. William Goldman, abridged, The Good Parts. And we'll talk about that too. So there's a lot to say, but I think first we should just hear how it goes. Time for a story.
On a small farm in the kingdom of Florin, a beautiful girl and a farm boy fall in love. When he leaves to seek his fortune, she is devastated to learn he has been killed by pirates. Vowing to never love another, she is nevertheless caught up into royal circles, where she is forced into a loveless engagement to the prince of the realm. But before they can wed, she is captured by 3 incredible villains, a swordsman, a giant, and a genius, who plan on killing her in order to start a war with the neighboring kingdom. A mysterious man in black sets out to rescue her, leading to a classic tale of true love and high adventure, as it says on the title.
Very good. So if you haven't seen this movie, I would go watch it first. Don't listen to this yet. Go watch it. It came out in 1987. The book came out in 1973. So it's almost 40 years old now, the movie. But it is wonderful.
I don't think I can emphasize enough how good I think the movie is. It is, in many ways, the perfect movie. So yes, go watch it. It is awesome.
It has it all in it. And it's just wonderful. I cannot think of a critique. So the movie screenplay was written by the same man who wrote my abridgment, William Goldman. And in my book, I have a 30th anniversary introduction and a 25th anniversary introduction. Do you have the same?
I do, in the same order. The 30th is first and the 25th is second.
So I don't want to spend a lot of time on the introductions, but I was captivated when I first started this by the 30th anniversary introduction because the author and the screenplay writer, he talks about stories of the cast. He talks about meeting Andre, the giant, the wrestler who plays Fezzik, who climbed the cliffs of insanity for practice 3 times. And he is marveling that he would do this. Like, weren't you afraid? It was good practice. He also tells this wonderfully touching story about when his grandson turns 10. All he wants to do is go to Florin City. And they go to this museum, and there's this whole thing about the sequel to this, that there is a sequel. It's 1 chapter long. It's a partial. But his grandson wants to go. And so that's part of his backstory where when the author was 10 years old, his father read it to him. And in the movie, it's the kid's grandfather. So it's just this touching tradition over time through his family. Like when his son turns 10, he goes through this whole ordeal to get the book for him because it's not written in English anymore. I mean, it is complicated, but he makes it happen. There's other things that happen. Even the stories between the cast members are interesting.
Well, I think maybe I should start with the way I read this too, because I always read the introductions. And there's three. There's the 30th anniversary introduction, the 25th anniversary introduction, and then just the introduction to the book, the original one. And everything like you said, and wonderful stories and fascinating, and I was on the hook. And I'm a primary sources guy. And so he was very clear that this was the abridged version because he learned later in life that his dad had only read him an abridged version.
The good parts.
Yeah, and which is why when his son went to read it, he said he couldn't understand why his son didn't like it. And then he tried reading it again and realized that he had only been read the abridged parts. Now, I've experienced something like this with movies. I grew up watching a lot of cut-for-TV version movies, and particularly in the 80s, that meant cutting a lot of the movie. And so then when I started dating my now wife and said, hey, let's watch this movie that I remembered fondly, let's just say it was a very different experience when we rented it.
I have like 3 examples that come to mind. I'm not even going to say them because I was shocked. Anyway.
And so that was kind of the feel I was getting from this, but I did love this so much. I thought, well, I need to go back and find the original. And so I went looking for the S. Morgenstern version. Did you do similar?
I spent maybe 40 minutes trying to find the Morgenstern version, either in Florinese, which I had not heard of, or English. Apparently that was hard to find in either one. Couldn't find it. Drove me crazy.
Me too. And I looked, and I am now that guy who has Googled, is Florin a real place? The answer Google kicked back was yes. It's a city in California.
I looked up, is S. Morgenstern a real author? And the answer is no. He's entirely made up. He is a fabrication of the actual author's creativity, William Goldman. And I felt duped.
I did too. It's a wonderful technique, and we'll talk a little bit about how he uses this to great effect. But yeah, I felt a little cheated there because I did believe this was an abridged version of a real work. And nope, it's all William Goldman.
I think what bothered me about this, I'm going to say what annoys me first because there's so much about the book I really enjoy and the movie, truly one of the best ever. And it's very similar to this book. Actually, the screenplay, there are lines straight out of this that they use. But the backstory he creates, the fictional backstory, is so complex. There's this whole legal battle with the Morgenstern estate, and he's annoyed, and he loses faith in the fake author, Morgenstern, at some point because he thinks about changing history. And that was the moment I thought, that's strange. And yeah, I had to go look it up. So Florin, Gilder are the battling, or hopefully battling, cities in this book. They're not real. Morgenstern, not a real guy. So William Goldman named this The Classic Tale of True Love and High Adventure, and then mocks Morgenstern for naming it like, that's a little pompous.
I actually respected that a great deal, that he did that move on it. I mean, so I started with the movie. I think nowadays most people probably started with the movie. And the movie is funny, which is one of the reasons I enjoy it so much. But William Goldman definitely has a tongue-in-cheek style of writing that is a whole kind of level above in terms of humor. It actually reminded me a lot of reading like Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, or Terry Pratchett, the Discworld books. A lot of the humor in the way he writes the book felt very similar to those things. And the more I kind of got used to the idea, the more sort of impressed I was with the way he used this device. My big complaint, and again, we'll talk about the things that bugged us, and then we'll go into what we love about this. But the thing that bugged me most was now I don't know whether to trust like the cast stories. I mean, the wonderful stories he tells about Andre the Giant, where the kids just loved him and how he never got cold and just what a great man he was. The stories about the way he interacted with Rob Reiner and the way he kind of got in the way of shots on the set. All these things, I don't know now which of these stories are real and which of the stories are part of this great imagination. And so that bothered me a little because I would like to know. But I guess I'm quibbling at this point.
Because they are fun stories. And so Andre the Giant plays this huge giant. Wait, I told you to go watch it. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. So then you'll know who I'm talking about. The guy who plays Inigo, Mandy Patinkin. They're talking about him. And again, I don't know if this story's real because he made up so much of it, but then he tucked in real things too. But Inigo, they're doing this initial reading together. And Andre, it said that they'd recorded his lines for him so he could practice when he was on the road.
Because he was a French native speaker. English was not his first language.
I believe that's true.
Yeah.
We have to stipulate. But it said that he travels like 330 days out of the year wrestling at the time. And that might have been true, actually. He was, I think, very active and busy. But anyway, trying to learn his lines, but he had a really slow way of reading them out, like he was reading them. And so Inigo slaps Andre the Giant. He slaps him. Again, I don't know if this is true, but everyone's shocked. This giant of a man just got slapped in the face. He says, "Faster, Fezzik." And it worked. I hope that's true. It's a really good story.
I hope that's true too, yeah. That's a bold move, slapping a giant. I mean, it really is.
They do list off his physical attributes in here. And again, I think it's true. I'm not sure. He's like 550 pounds and 7.5 feet tall. But if you look at him on screen, yeah, okay.
I believe it.
So there are some things in this that are kind of true and kind of not. But the reading to him as a young man, a 10-year-old when he's sick, because there's his whole thing about when he had pneumonia as an adult, that's when he came up with the screenplay. But in the movie, it's this sick boy, 10 years old or so, and his grandpa comes to read him this book because his dad had read it to him and his dad has read it to him before, which is just a really sweet tradition because this kid's playing a video game. It doesn't want to hear a book, especially with kissing in it. That's hilarious to me.
Right. And well, no, I don't even apologize. We're going to gush about the movie a lot as we speak about this story. And part of the reason I love the movie is how well cast it is. We already mentioned Andre the Giant. Mandy Patinkin is a genius. The lead roles, Carrie Elwes and Robin Wright, are just phenomenal. I mean, you don't get cooler than Carrie Elwes. He is just awesome. And in that initial scene, the fact that it's Fred Savage and the guy who plays Columbo.
That's his name.
Peter Falk, right?
I think so.
I think that's right. They are wonderful.
I call him Columbo.
Yeah. We're dating ourselves on that. But the crusty old grandpa who loves his grandson and the grandson that is kind of willing to put down his joystick for a moment and stop playing the game to listen to the story. It's touching and wonderful and so well cast.
And it is part of the made-up backstory of this book. So the part I do like, and I do think this is true, not in the introduction, Goldman, the author, he actually had 2 daughters. And it's funny, he has a fictional son in this. And his son is unfortunate and his family's unhappy. That's part of why it's part of that wry humor aspect. He didn't have a son, but he did have 2 daughters. And I heard a story. It says that one night he asked his daughters what kind of story they wanted him to tell. And one yelled princesses and one said brides. The Princess Bride.
There it is.
I love that. I hope that one's true.
I read that story too. I choose to believe it's true. I want to talk just a little bit about that idea, though, of the good parts version and casting this as an abridgment. That is a masterful stroke when you take a step back and think about it. Because what that means is he can shift the blame of anything he doesn't like or he can't pull off. If there's a story point or a plot beat that he can't think his way out of with a good thing, he can go into abridgment mode and talk about how that's Morgenstern's fault, but he's trying to be true to it. That's a pretty effective dodge for any author, because I think any author, as they're writing a story, comes across areas that they don't think work as well or they don't know what to do next. Well, there's a ready-made solution for that here, and that he can just blame Morgenstern. That's a slick trick.
And he tucks it in italics. He's like, ooh, me again in the middle of the story. I think a lot of it is transitions. And he does make fun of like old history books that go on for, 100 pages about the hats the ladies wore or something.
Yeah. And those transitions are very good. As we talk about the things that are in the book that aren't in the movie, those transitions aren't in the movie at all. And they do work in the book and are fun.
So I think while his sense of humor is very sharp and wry and has kind of a sarcastic nature to it, there are some wonderfully touching moments in this book. And so the movie was masterful in how it took the best pieces out of this book. But there are some things in this book that I just love. I love it. So do you want to begin?
I do. And the way this book starts is with something that is not in the movie. And this is the ranking system of beautiful women. It's so funny.
I was surprised.
The year that Buttercup was born, the most beautiful woman in the world was a French scullery maid named Annette. That's how it starts. And it talks about how Annette worked in Paris and was catching the eye of the Duke, which the Duchess didn't think very much of. But the Duchess was smart, and she realized that Annette had a weakness for chocolate. And so she fed this maid so much chocolate so that the Duke wouldn't look at her anymore. And then she's no longer the most beautiful woman in the world. And he goes through this series like that of these different women who at different times earned this rank of the most beautiful woman.
She was the most, number one. And I like that she has a happy ending on the first page. She marries a pastry chef and they end up very fat and happy together.
Good for Annette and good for getting away from the creepy Duke.
The year Buttercup turned 10, the most beautiful woman lived in Bengal, the daughter of a successful tea merchant. It says when Buttercup was 15, she's kind of moving up the list, but she's not number one. She's not even in the top 20 for a while. And it says she doesn't bathe. Like I think when she turns 15, 16, she won't take a bath. She's still pretty gross.
Yeah, she's not taking care of herself in any way. He talks a lot about how her ranking is largely based off of potential, not actually what's there.
Some objective scale of potential, yes.
But she's got that. And again, none of that's in the movie, and it's a fun part about the way the book starts.
Oh, the lady from Bengal, she falls out of number one because she learns to worry. She begins to worry about her appearance, so she gets worry lines and loses her spot.
That's right. Eventually, though, again, with all this potential, the village girls start to turn on Buttercup. Again, she's a farm girl. And the village girls start to shy away from her, not talk to her. And eventually, when she has the boldness to ask one of them what's going on, the answer is very clear. She is stealing the attention of all the boys.
So in the movie, the story between Buttercup and the farm boy is very abrupt. Happens very quickly. And in the book, what I like about it is that you get more backstory on most of them. Not a lot about Wesley, actually, but Buttercup's not interested in boys. She doesn't even like to bathe. She calls them beef-witted, feather-brained, rattle-skulled, clod-pated, dim-domed, noodle-noggin, sap-headed, lunk-knobbed boys.
I'm glad you marked that line because that was where I realized I was in for a totally different tone than I was expecting in this book.
That is a lot of adjectives. But she is not interested. So this thing with the farm boy where she's always bossing him around, it's a power play. She can control what he does, and he does it.
And the boy always responds the same way, no matter. So now we're to the farm boy on the village. This is Wesley, which I learned in the book is spelled with a T. I always assumed it was Wesley, but it's Westley. So now I know that. Every time she gives him an order, a command, an instruction, he always responds the same way, as you wish.
I like that she does thank him, though. In the movie, she doesn't at all. But in this, it's when the boys bother her or take her stuff, he'll go thrash them. It says she never fails to thank him. I remember reading this, I think I was in high school probably. I read the book, and I don't think I finished it because she was annoying. she didn't seem very nice. And what kind of story of true love was it? I don't think I made it past the first chapter, though.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because he wasn't very nice, but I was pleased to see that there was an instance where she didn't fail to thank him for what he did.
Yeah. And even with the village girls telling her she's stealing all the boys, like you say, she's not interested in them. So she's not going out of her way to do this. But people start going out of their way to look at her, including nobility. I mean, it says that at, I think, age 17, somebody actually like drove out to her farm just to stare at her. Creepy. But it also says this is how she came to the attention of the Count. And enter into the life of Florin, this fictional land, the first real power couple that we are introduced to, the Count and Countess Rugen.
It says they were a couple of the week in Florin and had been for many years. So if you go into this thinking it's an actual historical account, things like that come up. You're like, couple of the week? How old is this?
Yeah, that doesn't seem like a thing.
That doesn't fit. Anyway, Count Rugen comes in, and Buttercup's father and mother notice, like, this is a big deal for a carriage to come into town and stop at their farm.
And there's nothing impressive about Buttercup's mom and dad. They are not beautiful. Buttercup is beautiful, but they are not. And nor are they particularly good farmers. And so when the dad asks Count Rugen, why are you here? And he says, well, I've come to ask about your cows. It doesn't really make sense, but the dad's on board, and he's willing to engage with the Count.
And at some point, the farm boy comes in because there's a cow involved, and I think Buttercup bosses him to show them. But while the Count is looking at Buttercup, the girl, the Countess, is looking at the farm boy.
This was great, because this isn't in the movie at all. The Countess was indeed looking at the farm boy and wouldn't stop. And so you have this power couple who are just enjoying the beauty of these farm youths. And Buttercup notices. And all of a sudden, she starts feeling things that I think surprise her, and she becomes jealous of the Countess. The Count and the Countess don't stay for too long. I mean, they watch for a while, but then they end up leaving. And now Buttercup is left on the farm with her parents and Wesley.
It says that Buttercup was barely rated in the top 20 at this point. Her hair was uncombed, unclean. Her age was just 17. So there was still in occasional places the remains of baby fat. Nothing had been done to the child. Nothing was really there but potential. But the Count can't look away when he's there, and the Countess won't look away from the farm boy. So when Buttercup goes to sleep that night, she starts having bad dreams. She can't even fall asleep. Every time she closes her eyes, she sees the Countess looking at the farm boy. She's looping in her mind.
Eventually, she has to go to the farm boy, and she goes to where Wesley is sleeping, and she expresses her undying love to him in fairly strong language. It's really beautiful, honestly.
I forgot to mention. So there are movie lines from this book throughout. Here is where we learned that Wesley, the farm boy, has eyes like the sea before a storm. It's such a good line. And that is in the movie. It's wonderful. And it says, there have been 3 great cases of jealousy since David of Galilee was first afflicted with the emotion when he could no longer stand the fact that his neighbor Saul's cactus outshone his own.
I did not think that was the way that sentence was going to end.
I was so surprised. Cactus. Oh, okay. Here's her speech to Wesley, though. This is out of nowhere. Like, she's been so mean to him up to this point. Didn't care about, noodle-pated boys, even him. I love you, Buttercup said. I know this must come as something of a surprise, since all I've ever done is scorn you and degrade you and taunt you. But I have loved you for several hours now, and every second more. So theirs is an escalating kind of love, because she says,
exponential.
After an hour, I loved you. I thought I loved you an hour ago, but even more now. But that kind of continues throughout the book, where it's just exponential all the time. And Wesley closes the door in her face. That's a quote.
Which, again, I was not expecting. I was expecting a response to this, but Wesley, we learn, is a controlled individual. He plans, he thinks through things, he develops things, And he was not ready to respond at that moment. But I think it's the next morning, or I can't remember exactly how long it takes, but he does eventually approach Buttercup again. And the author makes it very clear that Buttercup isn't that bright in these chapters. And Wesley kind of calls her out on that, but says, I have made myself into somebody strong because I thought you would like somebody strong. I have worked for you because I thought you would like somebody that worked for you. You know, when I say as you wish, what I'm saying is I love you. And then he says, but in order to marry you, I need a fortune, right? I need money. And so he is going away to America. He is going to set sail to make his fortune, and then he is going to come back to her. And that is the first tragic separation of these two young lovers.
I love his discipline, though. He says, I've taught myself not to need sleep. A few hours only. I'll take a 10-hour-a-day job, and then I'll take another 10-hour-a-day job, and I'll save every penny from both, except what I need to eat to keep strong. And when I have enough, I'll buy a farm, build a house, and make a bed big enough for two. And that's the plan.
And so he takes off. And Buttercup now cares about her appearance because she's worried when Wesley comes back, will he still want me? And so this woman who has been ranked near the top 20, mostly for potential, starts to actually take action and ask about things like bathing and brushing hair and things like that. And she starts to rise right up the ranks.
The movie ends with a kiss rating. Or does it start that way too?
No, it ends with it.
It ends with the rating. Well, that too is from the book. It says the precise rating of kisses is a terribly difficult thing, often leading to great controversy. Because although everyone agrees with the formula of, get ready for it, affection times purity times intensity times duration, no one has ever been completely satisfied with how much weight each element should receive. But this kiss, before he leaves, it leaves them all behind, and he's off to make his fortune so they can build a life together. It's really sweet, and it's hilarious how he builds the premise for it.
As an aside, with the kiss rating, I'm just thinking of Dead Poet Society, where Robin Williams is talking about the scale for great poetry, topic versus, quality of words, and he's drawing it up on the board and then discounts the whole thing. That's what it reminds me of.
I wish I could remember what he says. Excrement.
Oh, yes, that is his final.
A poetical, good vocabulary word. Excrement, this rating. But this one, regardless of rating, leaves them all behind.
Beautiful, wonderful kiss. And as you said, he goes off, but it's not long after before Buttercup gets the terrible and tragic news. The dread pirate Roberts has taken his ship. And everyone seems to know about the dread pirate Roberts. And what they know about him is that he takes no prisoners. And so Wesley is dead. And she is crushed and heartbroken. She goes into her room for an extended period of time. She won't come out. When she comes out, though, the beauty that she had before is now mixed with sorrow. And so she now has life experience and sorrow, and it says she is now the most beautiful woman in the last 100 years. But after that, her parents are worried about her. They give her some cocoa to drink, and she sips it, says she's fine. But it says, the first chapter ends with the line, "But I must never love again." She never did.
So like I said, there's a lot in this book that annoys me, where he interrupts with interjections and italics and makes up complicated backstories. I don't know if they're real, but that's wonderful. The whole first chapter, I loved how he crafted it. I thought it was excellent. And that she's 18 and so beautiful and doesn't care. She's lost a thing of value, and it's made her so beautiful. Mm-hmm. But chapter 2 is called The Groom.
And this is the first major abridgment, where he talks about that he cut out 66 pages of Florinese history. It's pretty funny. One of the things you'll notice when you read this book is that the chapters are of wildly different lengths. Some of them are pretty long, and some of them are a couple of pages. This one is pretty short, but this is the one where we are introduced to Prince Humperdinck. Now, whereas Prince Humperdinck in the movie is wonderful, I mean, again, brilliantly cast, and he's great, but he's a very different character than what I see in the book here. In the movie, it's clear that he's a great hunter, but he is so much just tougher and more brutal in the book. there are actually pictures in my version of it, and the one in this chapter has him doing a rear naked choke on an ape. He is crushing and wrestling to death a great ape. He is that strong and that fierce and mighty of a hunter. And he really comes across as a very intimidating personage.
Here, I'll read it. Prince Humperdinck was shaped like a barrel. His chest was a great barrel chest, his thighs mighty barrel thighs. He was not tall, but he weighed close to 250 pounds, brick hard. He walked like a crab, side to side, and probably if he had wanted to be a ballet dancer, he would have been doomed to a miserable life of endless frustration. But he didn't want to be a ballet dancer. He wasn't in that much of a hurry to be king either. Hunting was his love. In the movie, Humperdinck says that, may I live 1,000 years and never hunt again. Like, that's hell for him. This gives the backstory of why this guy hunts everything. It's not just a hobby. It's a passion.
It is his love. And one of the things we get in the book that we don't get in the movie is the Zoo of Death. And this is the first introduction of that. So he lives in Florin. It's a middle-sized country, but he needs all these terrible creatures to hunt, to really be the great huntsman that he knows that he is. And so he has designed this underground labyrinth that has 5 different levels. And as you go down each level, it becomes more intense and more terrifying. I mean, there's a level for the poisonous beasts. There's a level for like the rhinos. There's each levels. But the 5th level is left open because he is hoping to find something truly terrible for that 5th level, something that can rival him as a hunter. And thus far, he has not found anything worthy of that 5th level.
I have to read some lines because there's a lot in here. He says, basically once he's fixed on a target, he says he never tired, never wavered, neither ate nor slept. It was death chess, and he was international grand master. And so as long as his dad's alive, his dad's the king, no problem. He can go out hunting, but he knows someday his dad's going to die, and then he won't be able to travel as much. So he crafts this zoo of death as basically a quarry pit so that he has things to hunt and fight. I mean, it's crazy. But I love this. The 4th level was the kingdom of the most dangerous, the enemies of fear, the shrieking tarantula, the only spider capable of sound, the blood eagle, the only bird that thrived on human flesh, plus in its own black pool, the sucking squid. So gross.
It's a terrifying level.
Yes, but he's an eternal optimist, so he keeps the 5th level empty because he knows something someday will come that belongs on the 5th level.
So as he is wrestling the ape, somebody we have already met comes in, and this is the Count Rugen, the one that went to see the beauty of Buttercup. He shows up because he's got a message for the prince, and once the prince is done defeating this animal, he listens to it, and it says, "Your father has had his annual physical," the count said. "I have the report. And your father is dying." "Drat," said the prince. "That means I shall have to get married."
He knows his duty. Here we go.
So you see his mindset coming into this. He doesn't want to get married. He is not looking for love, but he needs a male heir if he's going to be the king. And so up until this point, he could dodge that responsibility because his dad was still alive. He can no longer dodge it, and now he is set to find his queen.
So Prince Humperdinck meets with the royals. So Count Rugen, it says, is his confidant, and then King Lotheron and Queen Bella, his evil stepmother. And then there's stuff, and he's like, no, never mind. She's actually the sweetest ever. Queen Bella is actually really sweet, so why he tucked that in there, I don't know. But his dad is getting old, and they're looking for someone beautiful. Well, Count Rugen has seen somebody beautiful.
But before that, there's another option. The 2 great kingdoms are Florin and Gilder. Gilder is the competitor state. And there is a princess of that state. It is Princess Norina of Gilder. She apparently is renowned for having the largest collection of hats in the world. And so, obviously, this is the option. This is who he's going to marry. So he begins the courtship, and she comes over accompanied by all her hats, and they have this great feast and this wonderful banquet. But during the banquet, things don't really go the way they're supposed to. There's a great storm and wind is blowing, and it ends up actually turning some candles over, which cause a fire, and there's a great panic, at which point she removes her hat.
It blows off in the wind. She doesn't take it off. She said, give me my hat back. Princess Norina has a problem.
Well, Prince Humperdinck certainly thinks she does. Prince Humperdinck refuses to marry a princess that is bald.
He says, Madam, feel free to flee. And she does.
Yeah. So the courtship sours. It doesn't go well. And yeah, now he's looking for an option. So originally the prince was looking for a princess, somebody of royal standing, somebody who could bring something to the wedding. But after that, he's just looking for somebody pretty. He doesn't care who. He just needs somebody, doesn't even care if it's a commoner. And here is where Count Rugen steps in.
He says, she is already found. Well, he makes sure the prince doesn't care if she can't hunt. No problem. Who cares if she's a commoner? Can she hunt? Still, it's fine.
Yeah,
She's
they
fine.
don't need to share interests.
He approaches Buttercup very boldly and says, I am your prince and you will marry me. I guess she is a commoner, so he can do that.
Well, and everything Prince Humperdinck does is bold. Again, choked out a gorilla.
In the book, it's an orangutan. Your picture had it different.
Oh, okay.
Buttercup whispers, I am your servant and I refuse. I am your prince and you cannot refuse. And he says, refusal means death. And she says, kill me then. But they have this back and forth. She says, marriage involves love, and that is not a pastime at which I excel. I tried once and it went badly, and I am sworn never to love another. And he says, I don't need love. It's a deal. She gets wealth. She gets to be queen. They agree that they'll never love each other. Then by all means, let us marry, says Buttercup.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like she actually has a choice here. But yes, but she was willing to die.
Death or marriage.
If it meant she had to pretend to be in love with him. But once love was off the table, okay, we'll make it happen. The next chapter, totally gone. Completely excised. This is all about the training of Princess Buttercup in royalty. How to become a princess. And he just cuts it out completely.
Yeah, it says 105 pages, nothing happens except this. What with one thing and another, 3 years passed. Buttercup learns to be a princess, and 3 years passed. Next chapter.
To be fair, the next chapter is packed with awesome things. This is where things really get going. And it starts with Princess Buttercup, now acknowledged as a princess, being announced to the crowd.
I thought that was funny. She's given a title. So now she is, before she's even married, Princess Buttercup of Hammersmith. They find like a burg to make her the princess of. I forget the actual legality of it. He might have just said that it happens.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. And the people love her because she is beautiful and she's also kind. She chooses to go down and walk among the people. And it's a wonderful scene where everyone is really happy with the princess choice, even if she is a commoner, although it's not clear to me how many people know that. I said everyone's happy, but not everyone is happy. We get some foreshadowing here of people that are going to kidnap her shortly, but we also get this scene. But in the farthest corner of the great square, in the highest building in the land, deep in the shadow, the man in black stood waiting. His boots were black and leather. His pants were black and his shirt. His mask was black, blacker than raven. But blackest of all were his flashing eyes, flashing and cruel and deadly.
It's a good contrast to Buttercup because she's sweet here. She asked to walk among the people. And Humperdinck says, well, they're commoners. And she's like, I have known a few of those. And that's part of why they love her. She comes down among them. And it says, some are frankly jealous. Very few of them hated her. And only 3 of them were planning to murder her. It is unclear whether this man in black is one of them.
It is unclear. Buttercup is not happy. She doesn't particularly like her life. She doesn't love the prince. But there is one thing that she still loves and still gets to do, and that's riding. She loves riding her horse.
What is its name?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't remember.
Oh, horse.
You're right.
She's a simple, sweet creature.
That's so great.
To be clear, I am not opposed to sweet, simple names. Horse is a fine name for a horse.
It works well.
We knew that back with Wesley. She named a horse. And she kept the same horse when she went to the castle. There's a lot of great details in this book, I will say. But as she's out riding horse, she reins in because there's a trio, the strangest trio she had ever seen. The man in front was dark, Sicilian perhaps, with the gentlest face, almost angelic. He had one leg too short and the makings of a humpback, but he moved toward her with surprising speed and nimbleness. The other two remained rooted. The second, also dark, probably Spanish, was as erect and slender as the blade of steel attached to his side. The third man, mustachioed, perhaps a Turk, was easily the biggest human being she had ever seen.
And can I just say how well the movie does everything that's about to happen? Everything about to happen. When I read the book, all I see are the characters in the movie. But the first thing that happens is this Sicilian, this one with the angelic face, asks her if there's a town nearby because they are just poor lost circus performers. And she says, no, there's nothing anywhere for miles. And then he turns wicked. Then there will be no one to hear you scream. And then in the book, he does almost this Vulcan neck pinch. He does this pressure point thing to knock her unconscious, and the Princess Buttercup is now their captive.
The Turk, the big one, says, I think you should kill her now. And the Sicilian says, the less you think, the happier I'll be. The whole dynamic between the three of them is exactly like the movie. Mm-hmm. Excellent. But they leave cloth on her horse and send horse off. The cloth of Gilder. And so clearly this is a plan by the Sicilian, the short one, the humpback. And the other two are very confused. But we're starting a war here. That's what we're doing. So they pretend that Gilder has kidnapped the princess.
And then they take off. And when she wakes up, I think they're in a boat. They're traveling across the water. And she pretends to be asleep because she's trying to learn things and hear things. And they're all talking to each other. But then she starts to wonder if the Sicilian can read her mind because he knows she's awake. And every time she's about to say something, he has already anticipated it and tells her what she's about to say. She does not like this whole being captured thing, though. And then I think what she does next is ridiculously smart and brave. She says, without thinking, because she knows that the Sicilian can read her mind or believes he can, she just throws herself into the water. She's going to get away. And this is a difference between the book and the movie, which I think they made it better in the movie. In this, it is sharks that are out to get her. But in the movie, it is the shrieking eels, which I think are so much more terrifying.
The line from the Sicilian is, if you come back now, I give you my word as a gentleman and assassin that you will die totally without pain. I assure you, you will get no such promise from the sharks. He puts assassin in his title.
That's right.
The Spaniard here, he says, I don't like killing a girl. The Sicilian says, God does it all the time. If it doesn't bother him, don't let it worry you. Oh my
Logic.
gosh. That's terrifying.
That is a harsh one. But Buttercup does not flee back. I mean, she is brave, but they are able to actually see her. They're able to see her, and so they're able to swim to her and catch her. Now, in order to trigger this, though, the Sicilian always has a plan, and his plan is he's going to put blood in the water. So he cuts his arm, he cuts his leg, he fills this cup, he throws it in the water, and his plan is that this will make her scream. And when she screams, they'll be able to know where she is. But she doesn't scream. His plan doesn't work, but they're able to see her, and so he feels like he has been successful because she would have screamed, but she did not.
First try. I like Buttercup's thinking. She says, nothing can save me. I'm a dead cookie.
Dead cookie.
I get why they left that out of the movie. I'm a dead cookie. But that's the thing. She doesn't love the man that she's about to marry. She's already lost the love that she has sworn to forever. She had already kind of chosen death. But yes, Fezzik, the Turk, we learned his name is Fezzik. He pulls her out of the water because he really is huge. Prince Humperdinck's a big guy, Fezzik is a giant.
Literally a giant. He's awesome. They are approaching the cliffs of insanity. But as they do, Inigo is looking behind him. And he sees something. And he asks questions to their leader about whether it's possible anybody could follow them. And obviously it's not possible. The leader is very clear on this. And this is the wonderful use of the word inconceivable. And again, the movie could not have done this any better. Wallace Shawn, who plays the Sicilian, brilliant.
Absolutely, totally, in all other ways, inconceivable. Why do you ask? And the Sicilian comments like, it must just be some local fisherman out for a pleasure cruise alone at night through shark-infested waters.
Logical.
It's so good.
There's a black sail with one man at the tiller. This is the man in black. And he's gaining on them. But the Sicilian isn't really worried because he's got a plan. As they approach the cliffs of insanity, they put this kind of harness on their giant. And they tell Fezzik, sink the boat. And he does, naturally, by just smashing his foot through the floorboards. And then there's a rope that had been previously placed on the cliffs, and Fezzik grabs it, and all the three of the others latch onto him. And we learn that Fezzik's arms never get tired. Even if his legs do, his arms will never get tired.
He is by far my favorite character. I don't know if he was just from the movie. Now that I've read the book, absolutely, no question. So I'm going to read this about Fezzik. With that, the Turk began to climb. The Turk, Fezzik, same thing, the giant. It was at least 1,000 feet, and he was carrying the three, but he was not worried. When it came to power, nothing worried him. When it came to reading, he got knots in the middle of his stomach. And when it came to writing, he broke out in a cold sweat. And when addition was mentioned, or worse, long division, he always changed the subject right away. But strength had never been his enemy. He could take the kick of a horse on his chest and not fall backward. He could take 100-pound flour sack between his legs and scissor it open without thinking. He had once held an elephant aloft using only the muscles in his back. Wow.
Wow. So he starts booking it up the cliff. He's got a rope to climb, hand over ham. The Sicilian, who is named Vizzini, so we can start calling him Vizzini. Vizzini is, mocking him and making fun of him and yelling at him, and that's just right in Fezzik's mind. He feels like he's an idiot and should be mocked, and it just makes him climb faster and faster. But as they're climbing, the man in black is underneath them, and Inigo can see the man in black going up on the rope and actually gaining on this giant who is climbing above him.
We do learn a little bit about Vizzini here, the Sicilian. He's terrified of heights, but his mind is so focused on this man in black out of nowhere. It's inconceivable that he could have come in time, have found the horse. Nothing could have led him to them that quickly. It says that as a child, he realized his home body would never conquer worlds, so he had relied on his mind. He trained it, fought it, brought it to heel. And so this man in black is driving him crazy, but enough that he's not afraid of the climb.
Yeah, there you go. It helps a little bit. Vizzini's got a plan. He's always got a plan. Okay, if we can just get to the top, we can then cut the rope and this man will fall to the ground. Because somewhere in here it tells us that only 3 people have ever successfully climbed the cliffs of insanity, certainly without a rope. And they do. They get to the top in time above him, and Vizzini jumps out and he unties the knots and the rope falls to the ground. And the man in black clings to the cliff like a spider. He's been able to get off in time, and there he is. Vizzini's not worried. He's going to fall. Any moment, he's going to fall. But he doesn't fall. He starts to climb and climb. He's getting closer and closer.
The line does come from the Spaniard, that word inconceivable. I do not think it means what you think it means. So many lines from the movie are straight out of the book.
Yes, yes.
Anyway, the Sicilian and the giant, they take Buttercup and they leave the Spaniard there to fight. And it's not what he wants to do. Vizzini doesn't want to do that. He wants to watch the guy die. He's made a method and study of death. This is exciting and interesting. And he's sure he's going to fall. But no, you stay. We got to run. They're running out of behind. They're running behind. They're on a timetable.
Mm-hmm. And so Inigo is going to do his job. And so he's standing there waiting for the guy to climb up. And this is one of the greatest parts of the book as compared to the movie, is the backstory we get on Inigo and his father. Now, this relationship is very important in the movie, but it gets developed here. And we learn that his father's name is Domingo Montoya, the father of Inigo Montoya. And Domingo is a very special man.
The segue, the transition is that Inigo pulls out his sword. It's a 6-fingered sword, and it's so beautiful. And it says that Inigo brought it to his lips and with all the fervor in his great Spanish heart, kissed the metal. So he grew up in these hills of Spain, like kind of in the middle of nowhere. And Domingo Montoya, it says, was a funny-looking, crotchety, impatient, and absent-minded man who never smiled. Inigo loved him. Totally. Don't ask why.
But then there's this weird shift where it goes to Madrid. It goes to the big city. And we have a man, a bladesmith, a blacksmith named Yeste, Yeste. And Yeste is the man that everybody wants a sword from. The nobles are falling over themselves to pay money for the swords of Yeste. And it makes a point that they should, because he was a very good swordsmith who made very good blades. But it says once in a while, somebody would come to him. Somebody would come to him demanding a certain sword, a specific sword, a sword that was wildly out of what Yeste could do. And that's when Yeste would charge the man a ridiculous price, and then he would get on his horse and go into the mountains to meet Domingo.
It says that Inigo would always make tea while the two men talked, and the ritual was always the same. Yeste would show up, and clearly they're old friends and they love each other, the two swordsmen. Domingo, nobody's ever heard of Domingo. But Yeste, the man famous for his swords, comes to him for the difficult ones. And Domingo always says no.
And the back and forth between these two old friends is great because Yeste keeps escalating the question, right? You know, they're willing to pay this much. I need you to do this. I can't do it. I'll be ruined. My honor is gone. And Domingo keeps saying no and keeps saying no. And it always ends the same way, where Yeste threatens to kill himself over honor. He pulls out a dagger and plans to drive it into his heart. And this is finally where Domingo always relents. And he will craft whatever wonderful, marvelous sword for Yeste. Now, when I was first reading this story, this seemed totally unfair, that this one guy was just taking advantage of this guy in the hills. But at this point is where Yeste offers him, and every time, come with me. Come, work with me. You'll be famous. You'll be rich. You'll be great. They are true friends. But Domingo has no interest in that. Domingo doesn't want all these people coming to him where he has to work for them. And he is looking for a sword of interest, a sword that requires what he thinks a master smith would need to do. And he says, on that day, when I make that sword, when I find that, then you can call me a master.
Domingo also says he doesn't want to suffer fools. He doesn't want Yeste's business at all. So he ends up making these things, but they're not a challenge for him. And he demands, and Inigo's father demands that it be kept secret. Yeste, the swordsman, swordsmith, is not allowed to tell anyone that Domingo has made anything for him ever. And yet, one day, a gentleman shows up demanding a sword. He's heard that there's a great swordsmith here, and Domingo says, no, nobody here.
Yeah, just me. I'm sorry I can't do it for you. I wish I were better. I wish I was capable of crafting this sword. But then the Count shows something that changes Domingo's mind.
I love this line. It says, the nobleman says, I desire to have made for me the greatest sword since Excalibur. And Domingo says, good luck with that. I hope your wishes are granted. But this man has 6 fingers on his right hand.
This captures Domingo's imagination. And he starts talking out loud. His thoughts start coming out in his speech. And he says, oh, yeah, I can see that for a normal person, it wouldn't make a difference. Any sword could be used if you had 6 fingers or 5 fingers. But if you were a master, a true master, and wanted to be a master, it would make a difference. Subtle differences in weight and balance and shape. Then he starts asking, do you prefer to thrust or do you like to slash? What stances do you use? He starts going into these incredibly intricate details, and the whole facade is up at this point. Clearly, Domingo is the blade master, and this is the thing that captures his imagination. This will be his show of mastery to make this sword for the 6-fingered man.
And he doesn't even want the money. The guy offers to give him something in down payment. He's like, sure, give me a coin. And he throws it into a drawer. It stays there. Because the deal is that come back in a year. In 1 year, I will do my best. Domingo says, I will beat my body into ruins for you. Perhaps I will fail, but no one will try harder. It's not for this man. He doesn't know this guy at all. It's for the challenge of this special sword, the greatest sword since Excalibur.
And he does beat his body for this. He throws himself at this task to the point where Inigo, his son, has to remind him to sleep and to eat and to drink. And he goes through these peaks and valleys, these troughs of despair, where he feels like he's never going to solve the problem. And then he feels like he's on top of the world because he solves the problem. And then he finds out it was wrong. And he's just all over the place, back and forth, until one day it is done. And he has completed the greatest sword since Excalibur.
Domingo says, at last, after a lifetime, I am an artist. This was the personal test he wanted to complete for his own self, and he did it. But at a year, the nobleman, the gentleman comes back, and it says it's not worth what I offered you.
Remember, the nobleman offered him nothing. It was 1 gold coin. And Domingo, who has sweated over this is his soul in the blade, is offended and hurt and insulted. And he says, no, you are not worthy of this sword. Well, Count Rugen is a man who gets his own way, and he ends up killing Domingo. He drives this sword into his heart.
The Count says, you're a peasant and a fool, and I want my sword. Domingo says, you're an enemy of art, and I pity your ignorance. They were the last words he ever uttered. The Count, we learn it's the Count Rugen, same guy, but years ago, kills him for making this amazing sword. And he walks out the door.
What's crazy to me is that he left the sword.
Yeah.
That kind of surprised me. I'd assumed he would just take it, but this is something that happens in this small village, and there are other people around. And so Inigo takes his father's sword and he challenges the Count to a duel. He has no chance. He's a boy. He's
10. He's a 10-year-old boy, and this man walks up, says, oh, it was self-defense, and he's going to leave, and he's going to get away with it. And Inigo screams, coward, pig, killer. I, Inigo Montoya, do challenge you, coward, pig, killer, ass, fool, to battle. And the description, the man doesn't do it right away, but he does teach him a lesson before he leaves. And the description of the scars, I think in the movie they're very gentle, those scars. In this, it says they're temple to chin, and they mark him, and the bleeding keeps happening. This boy is marked forever. I was struck at how gentle they made the scars in the movie because, I mean, Mandy Patinkin's awesome where he gestures to his cheeks, but these are cuts in his face. His face is ruined, and he is bereft at the death of his father, the murder of his father in front of him, and this man just leaves him bleeding.
Yeah, again, the movie does a great job because Mandy Patinkin is brilliant, and so you can feel his pain and his sorrow and his love for his father. But in the book, boy, it develops it to where you really do see where that got set into his soul and into his heart. And so this boy now has this marvelous sword, and now he has a mission. He is set on revenge, and he goes to train.
Well, I love that Yesti is the one who takes care of him. The man, the swordsmith who'd come to Domingo and ask for favors, he really did love Domingo. They were friends and would have been partners if Domingo had ever said yes. And he cares for Inigo. And he knows what he's talking about, swords, but it says one morning, Inigo's gone. In his place were 3 words, I must learn, on a note pinned to his pillow. And learn what? He goes to learn the sword. And the swordsmith just gets more and more wealthy, more and more famous, more and more fat. He can't even move now because people just throw money at him. He's constantly doubling his prices and people still pay it. Shocking. He's doing very well, though.
Yeah, to levels he thinks are ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
He just thinks this is absurd, but everyone loves him. But then, Inigo disappears to go train, and he describes some of his training later. I love that he squeezes rocks like apples to make his wrist strong. 2
hours a day of squeezing rocks. 2 hours a day skipping, dodging, and moving quickly for the footwork. Another 14. Oh, that's right. They do the math of the hours. Like, what have you been doing for the last 10 years? And so he does the math associated with, I had to sleep 4 hours. 4 hours a night. And so squeezing rocks and then sword. The whole time he's been training for the sword.
And then he goes back to Yesti. And this scene is great because he has been training and he knows he must be great at the sword. He must be a master in order to defeat the Count because he cannot fail in this. And he asks Yesti, he says, watch me. Look at my technique. Look at what I can do and tell me, am I ready? And I'll believe you. I'll believe whatever you say. And Yesti has known swords his whole life. He's not a swordsman himself, but he knows swordsmen and swords. And he says, okay. And he watches Inigo perform. And he calls out things. He calls out different attacks and defenses. And he watches him move through these movements. And then at the end, it says, Inigo nodded. I tell you the truth, and it's up to you to live with it. First, there has never been a master as young as you. 30 years at least before that rank has yet been reached, and you are barely 22. Well, the truth is, you are an impetuous boy driven by madness, and you are not now, and you will never be a master.
Inigo says, I hope for better news, but okay. Because he told Yesti before, if I'm not ready, I'll go train another 10 years. Whatever it takes. Yesti's not done.
I loved your father very dearly, that you know. But this you did not know. When we were very young, not yet 20, we saw with our own eyes an exhibition by the Corsican wizard Bastia. I know of no wizards. It is the rank beyond master in swordsmanship, Yesti said. Bastia was the last man so designated. Long before your birth, he died at sea. There have been no wizard since, and you would never in this world have beaten him. But I tell you this, he would never in this world have beaten you. And he's 22. He is not a master. He is a wizard of the sword at 22.
So I love this because Domingo, his father, got so excited at the prospect of making the 6-fingered sword and how that would truly matter to a master. Not to just anybody with 5 or 6 fingers, the difference, not that big of a deal. But to a master, it would. And yet, Inigo has trained this whole time with the 6-fingered sword. I think that's a really interesting twist in that he made such an emphasis on the importance of it to someone who is a true master or a wizard. And so it would make a difference. Inigo could be better if he used a different sword. But he uses his father's sword. Love it.
It is great. And at this point, Inigo starts his hunt. And he doesn't think it's going to be hard. How many 6-fingered men can there be? Turns out it's kind of hard. He's not able to find the guy. And so he goes around, he does some sword fighting exhibition to make money, and he ends up really in despair because he's not able to find this target, and he starts to drink, and he starts to drink heavily. And that is where Vizzini finds him. Vizzini finds him drunk, and he gives him a plan and a purpose while he's still looking for the 6-fingered man. And all this backstory happens as he's standing on top of the cliffs of insanity, bored out of his mind, waiting for the man in black to climb the last 300 feet or however much it is.
I do like the mental gymnastics he does when he's looking for the 6-fingered man. Like, he's going to kill somebody, and then they'll be crying and begging for mercy. And he'll be like, do you know any 6-fingered men? And be like, yes, I know exactly where you can find him. But it didn't work out that way. But in this time where he's searching is where he comes up with the plan, what he'll say, how it's going to go. He emphasizes this in his mind. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. So good.
And haven't we all said that over and over ever since watching the movie? How can you not? It is such a great line.
And Mandy Patinkin is awesome.
True.
So again, if you didn't take my advice earlier, pause, go watch the movie, and then come back. So yes, fencing at this point was beginning to be boring for him. There's nobody better than him. So he's waiting at the top and just getting driven out of his mind with boredom. And it describes the masked man, the man in black, and he's shoving his fists into rocks and pivoting up on them. That sounds really painful to me. But the Spaniard calls that down to him, like, could you hurry up?
And it is a very gentlemanly discussion between the two where he says, you're just going to have to wait. I'm going as quickly as I can. He says, you could find a rope or something to be helpful. And the Spaniard is like, well, okay, I could, but I don't think you'll take my help because I'm just waiting here to kill you. And the back and forth is great. But eventually, the man in black basically says, well, the Spaniard, Inigo, says, is there any oath I can swear, any promise I can give you? And man in black says, no, I don't think so. And he says, I give you my oath as a Spaniard. And the response is great.
No good. No too many Spaniards.
But then finally, Inigo says, I swear on the soul of my father, Domingo Montoya, you will reach the top alive. And that gets through.
This response is different than the movie, actually. He says, I do not know this Domingo of yours, but something in your tone says I must believe you. Throw me the rope.
And so he climbs up. And then the duel begins. And this duel is so awesome. And it is really well described in both the book and in the movie.
In this, it's in the moonlight, which is very cool. And the edge of the cliffs plays such a role. So they both start left-handed. And you get Inigo's thoughts as he's left-handed because that's not his dominant hand. But he wants to make it interesting. This guy, there's something cool about this guy. He hasn't had a challenge with the sword since he's been training. And so as he's fighting left-handed, at some point he learns that the man in black isn't good among the rocks, no. But out in the clear, he's actually better than Inigo. And so he's driving Inigo back towards the cliff. And this is the moment where he announces, I'm not left-handed.
He's smiling. Why are you smiling? I'm not left-handed. And the hand switches over. The sword goes into the right hand. And now Inigo is dominant. He is fighting. He's on the attack. He's faster. He's quicker. He's winning. But then the man in black is not left-handed either. And he switches to his right hand. And now we have these two wizards going at it full force. And when all is said and done, it is the man in black who is triumphant, and Inigo is disarmed.
It says the man in black is a hair quicker, a fraction stronger, a speck faster. Not really much at all, but it was enough. Beaten by the man in black. And Inigo says, do it quickly. Be it done. And the man says, may my hands fall from my wrists before I kill an artist like yourself. I would as soon destroy Da Vinci. However, and here he clubbed Inigo's head with the butt of his sword. Since I can't have you following me either, please understand that I hold you in the highest respect. Sheathes the sword, runs off after Vizzini and the girl. And the giant.
The giant is shocked. He has beaten Inigo, the Turk said, not quite sure he wanted to believe it. But the positive that the news was sad. Well, Vizzini still has work to do. And so he ends up, the Turk's been carrying Buttercup up to this point. So at this point, he unbinds her legs, and Vizzini goes with the Turk, and he tells Fezzik, you take care of it now, your way.
I like that Fezzik's theory is that I'm so stupid. Fezzik always thinks he's wrong, always thinks he's stupid. He says Inigo hasn't lost to the man in black. He has defeated him, and to prove it, he put on all the man in black's clothes and mask and hood and boots and gained 80 pounds.
Not quite.
He's trying to make sense of it all. But here's where we start to see a little bit of how Fezzik thinks. And he's sad that Inigo's dead. They think dead. Because the only one who doesn't laugh at him when Fezzik wants to play rhyme games. Fezzik rhymes everything in his head. And that's a game in the movie, but there's so much more. Everything that's said, every time inconceivable, conceivable, believable, it just rattles off in his head. I don't think I'll watch the movie the same way ever again. Inconceivable, believable.
And the rhymes are great, and he loves them. And he loves when people will rhyme with him. And yeah, Inigo's the only one that will do it. And Inigo doesn't laugh at him, and Inigo joins him in this game.
He also might have whispered, heavable, thievable, weavable. I love wordplay, so way to go, Fezzik. I'm a fan. But he does always think he's in the wrong.
Yeah.
And the Sicilian says, stay here, you kill him. Do it your way. And he says, what's my way? Pick up a rock, hide behind the boulder, and throw it at his head. He's very accurate with rocks and throwing. This guy, turns out, has been a fighter. That's what he's done his whole life.
And in the same way we got backstory on Inigo, here we get backstory on Fezzik. And it is worth reading the book just for these backstories. I mean, there's other great parts about it, but these are wonderful. And again, this is another reason to love Fezzik even more. I mean, he's lovable in the movie, but he starts as a little boy born in Turkey, and he is huge from the time he's little. I mean, he's shaving at like a year old. I mean, he just keeps getting bigger, but he is so gentle. He never wants to hurt anybody, and he gets bullied nonstop while he's at school. All these kids keep picking on him, hitting him, bullying him, and this young boy who looks like a grown man just covers his head and takes it. He takes it because he doesn't want to hurt anyone. Well, his parents decide that's not okay. They've got to do something about it, and they've got to teach him. And so his dad decides he's going to teach him to fight. This doesn't go well for his father because he tries to talk Fezzik into hitting him. Hit me, hit me. He keeps trying. Well, eventually Fezzik does just to please his dad, and he shatters his jaw. At this point, his father decides he's going to retire from the world of carpentry, and he's going to become Fezzik's manager because fighting is all the rage in Turkey, according to this story.
It is sweet and sad, though, because as you say, Fezzik doesn't want to. He didn't want to learn to make a fist. He didn't want to hurt his dad. He's crying and says, maybe tomorrow, Daddy. Like he's, 5 or 6 years old at this point?
Very young.
But he goes on tour to fight the strongest wrestlers of every country, and his parents are his managers, and he hates it. He hates everything about it, but he's so good at it.
He beats them all. I mean, almost accidentally. He's just so big and so strong. But nobody is impressed, and nobody likes him for this. He hears booing. He'll go into these different cities and nations, and he'll beat the leader, and everyone just boos him because it doesn't even look fair. He's so big and so strong. But then finally, he comes up with a way where they won't boo him. He's going to fight groups. So instead of one guy, he fights 12. And now it doesn't seem so lopsided. He still dominates, but they're not booing him anymore, at least for a little while. And then eventually, once he's done this long enough, everyone's booing him, even if he's fighting groups. And he's just miserable. And he ends up being abandoned by the circus he's part of in Greenland, just alone. And to Fezzik, being alone is just miserable. And that is where Vizzini finds him. And Vizzini gives him purpose and a job, and he joins this group. And that is where Fezzik becomes part of this trio.
Yeah, the reason he's alone is that his parents get sick, and they actually die one night. And he's like, well, at least I have my fellow circus performers. They boo him, they kick him out, and he's left alone. And it's not just misery, it's his greatest fear. You get a lot of just his fears. There's so much that he's afraid of. This hulk of a man who can beat groups of 12 easily is so afraid all the time. And he's just the sweetest, and I want to give him a hug. I love everything about Fezzik. Part of it is he's so incredibly decent. He's hiding behind this boulder with a rock that he could totally kill the man in black easily. No problem when he comes running up. And he says, no, not by ambush, not the coward's way. Nothing unsportsmanlike. His parents had always taught him to go by the rules. So he stands in the shadow. He chucks the rock like a fraction ahead of the man in black's face. And he says, I didn't have to miss.
I believe you.
Yes. We face each other as God intended. No tricks, no weapons, skill against skill alone. And the man in black points out that Fezzik has a little bit of an advantage. Somewhere in here is the I don't even exercise line. But Fezzik is wonderful. And they too have a chat as they fight. I think he asked the man if he burned himself with acid, like, why are you wearing that?
It confuses him. He says, no, I think they're terribly comfortable. I think everyone will be wearing masks in the future. Well, the man in black, in the same way that he was so good with the sword, he's good in a wrestling match. And here we see the power of the rear naked choke, because he takes Fezzik's back and all of a sudden the windpipe starts to get crushed. And Fezzik does everything he can. And Fezzik is trying to figure out, how is this possible that I could be losing? And the only explanation he can come up for this is that he's so used to fighting groups that he's lost his skill with fighting individuals. He doesn't have the moves anymore, but he goes down under the man in black.
Says the man in black picks up his sword, 2 down, and the hardest one to go. Vizzini was waiting for him.
There is a line from the movie that is not in the book that is great, because in the movie, the man in black checks Fezzik to make sure he's alive, and he says, I don't envy you the headache you'll have when you wake up, but in the meantime, rest well and dream of large women.
How much of the movie do you think we could actually just do from memory?
I think I could do almost all of it.
I was thinking 70 or 80% or so, and I haven't even seen it in years.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I
could still do it. No problem.
think I could too.
So yes, Vizzini is waiting. The girl Buttercup is on the ground. There's a picnic set here. Leather wine holder. Beside it, some cheese, some apples. I believe Buttercup's on the ground in this. In the movie, she at least gets to sit there, but there is a knife at her throat. Mm-hmm. And Vizzini welcomes the man in black. Says, you've beaten my Turk. You've beaten my Spaniard. He's deduced some things. But I want it quite clear that I resent your behavior. You are trying to kidnap what I have rightfully stolen. And I think it quite ungentlemanly.
The man in black keeps moving forward, trying to talk to Vizzini. And every time Vizzini moves that dagger a little bit further into her throat and says, you're killing her, stop it. And the man in black backs up. And it becomes clear that they are at an impasse, because the man in black is, strong. He's a great swordsman, and Vizzini knows he can't handle him physically. But Vizzini is very confident in his brain, in his genius. And so he believes there's no way that they can move on from here. But the man in black has a solution, and he challenges Vizzini to a battle of wits.
I'm sorry, I had to read a paragraph. It's really good.
It is.
There are no words to contain all my wisdom. I am so cunning, crafty, and clever, so filled with deceit, guile, and chicanery. I don't even know that word.
Chicanery.
Chicanery. Such a knave, so shrewd, cagey, as well as calculating, as diabolical as I am vulpine, as tricky as I am untrustworthy. Well, I told you there were not words invented yet to explain how great my brain is, but let me put it this way. The world is several million years old, and several billion people have at one time or another trod upon it. But I, Vizzini the Sicilian, am, speaking with pure candor and modesty, the slickest, sleekest, slyest, and wiliest fellow who is yet come down the pike.
I'm glad he's being modest.
That is quite a speech. And this is the point. The man in black says, well then, I challenge you to a battle of wits. To the death.
To the death. And this is so well written. What he does is he has Vizzini pour the wine, and then he pulls out of his pocket a container. And he has Vizzini smell the container, but he warns him, don't touch it. No contact with this. And Vizzini doesn't smell anything and says, of course not. This is iocane powder. And again, if you haven't watched the movie or read the book, we are about to spoil something wonderful here. So just watch the movie. Moving on. He challenges him that he is going to pour the poison into one of the goblets of wine. And he turns his back and he does what he does. And then he turns around and he has the two goblets, and he very carefully puts one in front of Vizzini and one in front of himself. And he says, all right, the battle of wits has now begun. You pick. One of these is poisoned. I will drink whichever one you don't pick, and one of us will be dead. Commence.
Well, Vizzini ponders, and it says he relishes, he considers, and the man in black says, you're stalling. All I have to do is deduce from what I know of you the way your mind works. Are you the kind of man who would put the poison into his own glass or into the glass of his enemy? And they go back and forth. Vizzini has all kinds of words. Oh, man. This back and forth is really good. The man in black says, keep going. Oh, I intend to.
I love that the man in black describes him as having a dizzying intellect. Eventually, though, Vizzini pulls out the stupidest, most childish trick you've ever seen. He literally points and says, what is that over there?
What in the world can that be? And the man in black says, what? Where?
Turning around, and Vizzini switches the goblets while his back is turned. It's the stupidest thing ever. But Vizzini just loves this and thinks this is great. And he picks his goblet, and the two of them drink together.
He was quite cheery, the Sicilian, until the iocane powder took effect. The man in black stepped quickly over the corpse, then roughly ripped the blindfold from the princess's eyes. That's how abruptly it ends.
The princess is confused, though, and says, oh, to think all this time it was your cup that was poisoned, because that's the one Vizzini grabbed. And he tells her, and here it is, they were both poisoned. I've spent the last 2 years building up an immunity to iocane powder. That's just brilliant.
Well, doctor, is that possible?
For some poisons, yes, but be careful about the poison you choose, because arsenic will just kill you. That builds up in the system. There are some poisons that build in the system. There are others that you can build a tolerance to. Since iocane is completely fictional, I cannot give an answer on that one specifically, but it worked for the man in black.
Well, he's very rough with Buttercup. He's been following them since Florin, the city in Florin. It referenced the man in black there, and he followed them on the ship and up and battled and had sword play and hand fighting with a giant in this battle of wits. But he's really mean to her. He says, I let him die laughing. I let Vizzini die laughing. Pray I do as well for you. Woo.
And he takes her hand and drags her off. And she warns him, hey, I've got this fiancé. He's the greatest hunter ever. He will find you. He'll reward you if you let me go. But if not, you are going to die. You cannot escape him. But the man in black doesn't pay any attention. And yeah, he is progressively more and more mean to her as they journey.
Remember, because this was jarring for me. In the movie, this happens in daylight. I feel like that's reasonable. This is all by moonlight. And so he's looking up at constellations. He's clearly heading somewhere specific, but yeah, he is towing her behind him, dragging sometimes. He'll throw her on the ground. Very mean, actually. He says, catch your breath.
Eventually, though, she's had enough. He is standing there looking out, and he's looking out over the water, and he sees the entire armada of Florin. The prince has been busy and has been looking for her and is tracking her down. And he's looking to try and figure out how he can escape as they're up on the top of this hill. And at this point, she takes her chance. And as she jumped out of the boat with Vizzini, she's able to shove him down this great precipice, and he starts falling down this steep hillside.
She does it because he makes her mad. He keeps mocking her that she can't love anyone because she admits that she didn't love the prince. She's getting married, but she doesn't love him. He's like, yeah, because you're incapable. Because she mentions that there was a boy, poor and perfect. And he asks, were you sorry? Did you feel pain? Admit that you felt nothing. And she screams at him, do not mock my grief. I died that day. And shoves him down the hill.
With the words, you can die too for all I care. And this is incredible. Words followed her, whispered from far, weak and warm and familiar. As you wish.
This is her moment of realization. Oh, my sweet Wesley, what have I done to you now? but she can't hear him at the bottom of the ravine. There was a hill. Like, we are not kidding about the cliff. She just shoved this guy down. Buttercup hesitated not a moment. Down she went after him, keeping her feet as best she could. It says she would have gladly dropped 1,000 feet onto a bed of nails if Wesley had been waiting at the bottom, cartwheeling toward what was left of her beloved.
And then we have a scene shift in the book, because now we go to the prince. And the prince is, no joke, a phenomenal hunter. He can track and sense and plan. And he has these 4 great horses, these 4 white horses that he rides bareback. And when one gets tired, he moves to the other and the other. And so he can cover distance like you just wouldn't believe.
I love this line, ready the whites. These are amazing horses. He outdistances everyone who in his party that's behind him. Catch up later.
He's able to track them up the cliffs of insanity. He's able to follow the duel. He's able to determine just the mastery of these two in the duel. He's able to go to the wrestling scene and say with confidence, someone has beaten a giant. He goes and he sees the dead body of Vizzini. He's able to follow this whole thing. Remember when Vizzini smelled the iocane powder, he smelled nothing? Prince Humperdinck smelled it and said, iocane powder. He knew it immediately. This is an intimidating individual. And then as he keeps going, he sees these 2 people at the bottom of a ravine. And they are running into the fire swamp.
Clearly, everybody knows the fire swamp, and they assume that they won't go in because nobody survives the fire swamp. Wesley, indeed, had not the least idea he was racing dead into the fire swamp. He knew only once Buttercup was down at the ravine bottom beside him that to climb out would take too much time. They can't get back out again.
And he needs to get to the other side of this. And so he takes her by the hand, and through it they run. There's a weird digression here where he talks about like something he wrote about the reunion of the two and says Morgenstern didn't include it, but he thought it should be. So you need to write to this place to get the description. I don't know. This one kind of seemed to break the flow of the story for me.
It did. And it's part of why the backstory is so convincing, I guess, because he puts in an address and people really wrote in, and the publisher had a response like, oh, we can't issue that because it's not in Morgenstern's original. It's a very elaborate ruse tucked in here, but it's acknowledging the moment that Buttercup and Wesley, after years, and she thought he was dead, and he came to rescue her, and he thought she didn't love him because she was marrying another man. It's a complicated scene that they just skip over.
And in my version, which again is the 30th anniversary version, there's actually a footnote with a website you can go to because people aren't writing anymore. So there's actually a website. I mean, like you said, complicated.
I felt duped, all right? The whole thing by the abridgment. But anyway, that I guess you can write in. I wonder what you get now. Somebody should do it. Let us know. I have no idea. Anyway, here's where we learn Wesley's story. But they're marching along the bottom of this ravine, and we learn where he's been and why Buttercup thought he was dead.
He was indeed taken by the Dread Pirate Roberts, and it is true, the Dread Pirate Roberts does not take prisoners. But Wesley asked him to please live. And there was something about the way he said that captured the attention of the pirate. And because everyone else was offering him money, they were all blubbing, they were all just trying to save their lives. But Wesley was very calm and said, please, I must live. And he described this woman he was in love with and why he had to live to get back with her. And what begins is then this training montage where the pirate says, well, all right, I guess you can be my valet. I'll kill you tomorrow. But Wesley had, as we discussed earlier, trained himself to only sleep 4 hours a night. And he was willing to work and willing to learn. And so that first night, he does all sorts of things on the ship. He helps the cook. He organizes things. And so the next morning when the pirate comes to kill him, he has done all this, and it becomes night after night where Wesley becomes a part of the crew. He becomes truly the valet of the Dread Pirate Roberts, and he learns all this stuff about pirating. And then eventually he becomes such good friends with the Dread Pirate that he learned something new. the dread pirate tells him that he's not really Roberts. The name. It is the name that is the important part. And Wesley had discovered this because he had been given a task, actually, of boarding a ship, and the ship laughed at him because he just said, I'm Wesley, and they shot at him. But if he had said, I'm the dread pirate Roberts, they would have cowed in fear. And this had happened sequentially to all these pirates in the past. And so this guy says, yeah, I inherited the title from the dread pirate Roberts before me, who inherited before him, who inherited before him. And he says, do you want the job? I want to retire. And so this is how Wesley became the dread pirate Roberts. They went ashore. They took on a whole new crew. The old dread pirate kept calling Wesley Roberts, and eventually he was able to leave and enjoy his wealth. And then that left Wesley as the Lord of the Seas.
And that's where he's been for 3 years. I feel like he could have dropped a letter, but maybe she didn't get it. It says that Wesley figures out before Buttercup where they're headed. And he plays it so casually, like, soon we'll be safe inside the fire swamp. He knows it's scary, but their conversation so far has been him kind of insulting her because she's like, oh, everybody says how pretty I am. I have a brain. He's like, yeah, I know. Of course you do. When's the last time you read a book? Pictures don't count. And he kind of belittles her a little bit, but they're kind of getting used to each other again. And this is where we learn details about the fire swamp. With any luck, we'll be safe inside the fire swamp. It says Buttercup heard the speech, of course, but she did not take it well. Everybody dies in the fire swamp, especially this Florin Gilder fire swamp. The ROUSs. I mean, by now, everybody's watched the movie because we said it several times, but the rodents of unusual size, they're absurd. He references a capybara, a lot like a capybara, like with a rat mixed in, and they're huge. There's also the snow sand, but Wesley gives Buttercup instructions, flatten out, sink as slowly as possible. I'll come get you. They have a plan for all the things that could happen.
And every one of the things that happens, they need that plan. The fire that pops up out of nowhere, they're able to kind of identify that. She does sneak into the snow sand, and she goes into a dead man's float, and Wesley is able to dive in and through a great act of heroism save her. And then the ROUSs swarm. They attack him, and they're gross, but he is able to finally defeat one of them, and once the blood is exposed on the ROUS, the other ROUSs will attack it. And so he hides the blood on his own body with mud and things like that, and they are able to make it through and get their way through. As an aside, ROUSs, for a time in my life, I lived in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba with the Navy, and there is a critter there called a banana rat. That's what they refer to them as. They're big-ish. They're a couple feet long. They're really stupid. They come out at night, but they're kind of one of the renowned creatures there. My children referred to them as ROUSs the entire time we were in Cuba. It was great.
I could see it, yeah. There is a thing with Buttercup and her dreams in this book, because she says, I once dreamed I would die here, in the fire swamp. And Wesley plays it, oh, of course you did. We all had that dream. No problem. But dreams were how she couldn't get the Countess looking at Wesley out of her mind earlier on, and she has dreams later. So dreams mean a lot to her, and she is terrified in this place. But Wesley rescues her. This guy is amazing. And it says, Wesley led the way, Buttercup stayed just behind, and they made from the outset very good time. It says it wasn't that bad. But when they come out the other side, the prince is already there with his white horses. The count is already there. They didn't make that good a time. They're trapped.
There's like 100 soldiers, and then there are crossbowmen up and around. Wesley, though, always cool. He will never surrender, never back down. But Buttercup cannot lose him again. She knows he's dead if he resists. There's no way he can get out of this. And so she makes a deal. Against Wesley's will, and really against all her desires, she tells the prince she will go with him if they spare him and return him to his ship. She describes him as a sailor, a simple sailor, and says return him to his ship. And the prince takes the deal, and away he goes with Buttercup, leaving the Count behind with Wesley.
She tells Wesley, they have a conversation. Wesley says, the truth is that you would rather live with your prince than die with your love. And Buttercup says, I would rather live than die, I admit it. And he says, we were talking of love, madam. And Buttercup says, I can live without love. And with that, she left Wesley alone.
The end of this chapter is fantastic. Come, sir, Count Rugen approached. We must get you safely to your ship. We are both men of action, Wesley replied. Lies do not become us. Well spoken, said the Count, and with one sudden swing he clubbed Wesley into insensitivity.
It is noted, Wesley does notice, that there are 6 fingers on his right hand.
That's who Inigo's been looking for. I wonder if that'll come up later. The next chapter gets into the festivities. And so this is another one where a lot is excised from Morgenstern's original. But what we really get in this one is what happened to Inigo and Fezzik, because they weren't up there when the prince came. Inigo had gotten away, and there was an instruction that they had as a team. If things went wrong, they were to go back to the beginning where they got the job. And it turns out that was in Florin City. And so Inigo returns to the thieves' quarters in Florin City, and he starts drinking again, waiting for Vizzini to come. He doesn't know Vizzini's dead. Fezzik does. Fezzik saw the body, but Fezzik got it wrong and couldn't remember what he was supposed to do, and so he doesn't meet up with Inigo right away. He basically gets lost and has to kind of come up with something for his own. And then you mentioned the dreams of Buttercup, and this is where her dreams, there's a whole sequence of dreams, really come in.
Her dreams are horrible. There's one in the movie. She has several in the book that are progressively worse. And I did wonder if putrescence was in this book. It is not. There are other big words.
I looked for that too, actually.
They added that for the movie. Very good word.
The first dream is the one that makes its way into the movie, and that's where she is walking out as the queen because the king has died. And there's this old, ugly woman who just shouts boo at her and won't accept her and criticize her for leaving Wesley in the fire swamp. And this is another one of those weird things with the way this book is designed. He describes how he made his dad stop reading because this was wrong. that the king was dead, that she had married the prince. That can't happen. And it's pretty well done. And what we learn is that this is, again, a dream. It's not really, she has not yet married the prince.
The dreams are pretty horrible. In one, she has a baby, and the baby talks to her and basically tells her how horrible she is. The baby says, I'm dying now. There's no love in your milk. Your milk has killed me. She wakes up screaming and screaming and screaming night after night. It's really horrible.
Mm-hmm. And after all these, she realizes there's no way she can go through with this marriage. And so she goes to Humperdinck. The prince seems to be having a change of heart. He seems to be acting much more caring and actually loving towards her. And he tells her, well, I don't want to hurt you. I don't want you to suffer harm. But do you think Wesley still wants you? After all, you're the one who left him. And this is really very cutting for her. But he says, well, there's a way we can find out. You know, the dread Pirate Roberts, we know he's always around Florin this time of year. I will send out my 4 fastest ships in the 4 directions. You write your letter and we'll respond to him, right? We'll see. If he wants you, great, I'll bless it. But if he doesn't, you're going to marry me. She says, okay, I can go along with that.
Yeah, at this point, I think she kisses him on the cheek. It's a kind offer of him for him to do that. But we learned that something has been added to the 5th floor of the Zoo of Death. And it's not just Wesley. Wesley is taken by the Count to the 5th floor, and there's reference to the machine. This is a torture device. It says the Count really cared about pain and the subject of distress. He's writing like this scientific work on it. It's very messed up.
It is totally messed up. And they do start to torture Wesley, who is now on the 5th floor. They don't start with the machine, though. They start with traditional torture. And in the same way that Wesley is awesome at everything, it turns out he's really good at handling torture. He can take his brain away to where his body is suffering his pain, but his mind is not. And so after like a month of this, he's fine, but he's pretending like he's suffering and in all this pain. And the prince is kind of duped by this, but the count knows he's not experiencing anything. But it is finally when the prince gives the count permission to use the machine, this is where the count gets excited. In the meantime, we learn some more things about Prince Humperdinck. The man that was evil and cruel at the beginning is still evil and cruel now, no matter how he's treating Buttercup. This is where we learn that he was the one that hired the 3 assassins. That was his plan, because what he wants is war with Gilder. And now his plan has changed, where instead of hiring assassins, he's going to kill her himself on his wedding night. And that is going to be the trigger for the war, because he's going to say that soldiers from Gilder did it. And he's working to try and make himself look great, like he really loves the princess. And so he calls in the head of the guard, a character we haven't met yet named Yellen. And he keeps telling him that he has all this information about how Gilder is planning this attack and is planning to kill her. And he has this man double the guard, triple the guard. And he also has him come up with a force, a brute squad to clear out the thieves' quarter so that nobody will harm the princess, even though he's planning to kill her anyway.
The brute squad is Fezzik. Plus some other guys.
That's right.
All you need is Fezzik. But that's where Inigo had gone as well, to wait, back to the beginning. But Fezzik finds Inigo, and I love the rhymes in his head as he goes, and he brings Inigo back. I think Inigo's the last one. They can't get rid of him, even stupid drunk. Inigo's a master, a wizard with the sword, and they can't get this guy out of the thieves' quarter. Well, Fezzik finds him. He knocks out the other guy. They think the thieves' quarter's empty because Fezzik takes care of him. He douses him in water. He makes him eat something. The scene is so good how he takes care of him. It's not quite gentle, but it's very good.
After this reuniting, again, the prince has given the count the ability to use the machine, and the machine is horrific. It sucks life out of the individual. And the count is doing this all academically. He's trying to write a book on it. And so he takes away 1 year of life, 2 years, maybe 4 years, but that's as much as he's going to do. It is somewhere during this that Buttercup has an interaction with the prince, and the prince slips up to talk about his armada, but not the 4 fastest ships. And Buttercup realizes that he never sent the ships. At this point, she trusts Wesley so much and believes so much in him that it doesn't really matter to her, because she believes Wesley will come and save her. And she starts comparing Wesley to the prince. And the prince hates this because he's just not as good as Wesley. And then in anger, he takes her, he locks her in his room, and he rushes to this 5th level of his zoo where Wesley is. And he throws the machine up to the highest level, and he kills Wesley in that dungeon.
The scream is heard throughout the land. And at this point, Inigo's awake now. He's conscious, and he's trying to come up with a plan. But the reason that they were with Vizzini is he was the planner. He told them what to do. Inigo's a master with the sword, but he doesn't know how to get in. He knows Count Rugen's in the castle now even. He knows where his target is, but he can't figure out how to make it happen. The castle's guarded, and he hears this scream. And him and Fezzik talk through it, that's the cry of ultimate suffering. Inigo knows that sound because he experienced it when his father was murdered in front of him. And he hears it there, and it's the man in black. He knows somehow it's the man in black experiencing it now because they know he was there for Buttercup. And so they go to find the man in black.
And they are able to get close before the screen dies. And there is another character who has actually been kind of the Igor type character to the Count, right? He's the guy who's been helping. They just refer to him as the albino. Well, Inigo and Fezzik find the albino, and they ask him, where is the man in black? And they're pointed towards a door. Now, when the Count and the Prince are going to this 5th level, they've got their own opening to it, the safe way they can go directly to the 5th level. But Inigo and Fezzik get pointed to the main door, which means they have to go through levels 1, 2, 3, and 4 of all these horrific things before they can even reach that 5th level. And this is great. I loved this chapter because this is not in the movie, and it is so much fun. Level 1, not a big deal. There's scary things around them. Fezzik is terrified of crawling things, but they get through level 1 all right. They get through level 2 all right, but it's level 3 where things really start to go bad, because this is where the snakes are, and the giant snakes, the massive snakes.
That's where you hand it off to me. I'll tell you.
I don't want to talk about snakes.
The giant snakes. But in the asides in this, it says that the kid's dad would always stop at this part and be like, and then they found Wesley. He skipped the zoo of death because it's too scary.
So there's this massive python. I don't know what kind of snake it is, but it is crushing both Fezzik and Inigo. It sneaks up on them in the darkness.
It's an Arabian Gorstini.
Oh.
Shorter than the python and lighter than the anaconda. Quicker and more ravenous than either. Gross.
As they are being crushed, arms to the side, Inigo says, Fezzik, do something, because he claims to have rhymes that Fezzik has not heard. New and wonderful rhymes. Well, Fezzik wants to hear these rhymes, and he starts to get mad. And he's able to free a hand, and he's able to grab this snake by the throat and to crush it and kill it and save them. All because he wants to hear these rhymes from his friend, Inigo.
Inigo, tell me the rhymes. He escapes because he wants the rhymes. It's so good. Fezzik says, you lied to me, is what you're saying. My only friend in all my life turns out to be a liar. And he starts tromping down the stairs, Inigo stumbling after him. They almost died from this horrible snake, but he's on his way. You lied to me.
He is so offended. And Inigo tries to explain, well, I did it to save us. But Fezzik is not okay with this. But this then gets them into the 4th level. And the 4th level is where things of poison are. Really dangerous things. And the most dangerous is this tiny green spider. This poisonous spider that lives on the handle to the 5th floor.
Not yet. On the 4th floor, there are king bats. Poisonous bats.
Oh, I forgot about the bats.
And here come the king's bats, Fezzik screams. And they're horrible, and it's fully dark on the 4th floor. You can't see anything. And here is we learn about the Scottish blade master that Inigo trained with named McPherson. And McPherson was quite the tough teacher, but he used to scream at Inigo about all these terrible, like, well, what if your enemy's above you? What if they're below you? What if your enemy blinds you? He throws acid in your eyes, and now he dives in for the kill. What do you do? Tell me that, Spaniard. Survive that. And here, Fezzik is terrified. This is horrible for him. But as long as Fezzik holds still, Inigo fights these bats with a sword in the dark.
It's pretty awesome. I mean, it's like A New Hope where they're doing lightsaber drills with the blast shield down. I mean, he is just at one with everything around him. And the bats have no chance against Inigo Montoya and the 6-fingered blade.
I am Inigo Montoya, and still the wizard. Come for me. So cool. And then he mocks Fezzik at the end, says, some giant you are. And here, Inigo is forgiven for lying. Right. Because he just saved Fezzik's life.
But Fezzik is still kind of upset and scared by everything around him. And this goes back to that spider, because there's that spider hidden on the door handle. If anyone reaches to that door handle, this poisonous spider will jump out and bite them. But Fezzik isn't waiting for a door handle. He just charges it. He just runs at this door and breaks it open, at which point Inigo steps on the spider with his boot.
It's just this little thing on the ground.
So they save each other, and it's great. But they are terrified when they get to this 5th level, because every level there's been something scarier and scarier every one. And so they very slowly work their way down the steps, And this is where they see what they came to see. The man in black, Wesley, he is there, but he is dead.
All hope gone, snuffed out, beaten, gone, dead. But then Inigo has an idea. Yes, Fezzik, got any money? Let's hope it's enough to buy a miracle.
I love that there are just miracle workers around. That's part of society. Miracle Max was fired by Prince Humperdinck. He's got no confidence anymore, and he hangs out with his wife, Valerie. And this is where Inigo and Fezzik take the corpse of Wesley to try and see if he can do anything for them. And this scene is just great. It's great in the movie, and it's great in the book.
It is a little bit different in the book, but both of them are wonderful. And I think Valerie's a little more supportive in this one, but still, Max does not like the name of Humperdinck.
No, he does not.
And they use the bellows, and he's only mostly dead. And he does the thing, what's so important for you to live for? And true love is the answer. He squishes the air out of this dead man's chest, and true love is the answer, which is wonderful. Mm-hmm. And Inigo says, what could be more honorable than that? And he's like, no, it's different than the movie. What's he say? To blove? It's some weird word that means to bluff.
So obviously you were playing cards and he cheated. So Miracle Max has no confidence in himself anymore because ever since he got fired, he doesn't believe he can work these miracles. And so he comes up with every excuse to not help them. But his wife comes and just comes down on him hard and explains to him, no, you need to do this. But even that's not enough to get him going. But when he learns that the resurrection of this man could cause Humperdinck any pain, he's in. He still takes the money, but now he's going to kick into action.
There's a very good line that is different. It says, Sonny, don't you tell me what's worthwhile. True love is the best thing in the world, except for cough drops. Everybody knows that. I like they make a miracle pill, and it has to be covered in chocolate.
Well, of course, that just makes sense to me. The other thing I like about the book version of this is that Inigo and Fezzik have to go gather things. There's ingredients, and so in the movie, some things kind of show up out of nowhere, like the Holocaust cloak. But in this, that was part of what was necessary for Fezzik to go gather certain ingredients. But the ingredients are gathered, the pill gets constructed, and it gets coated in chocolate, and they're ready to go.
The other thing that's very different is it's a 1 hour pill. Either it's going to be plenty of time or you'll both be dead. So why not say an hour? The pill will only keep him alive for 1 hour, and then they don't know what happens. If it works, 1 hour. Fezzik and Inigo head out with the body and this pill. They gotta conserve the time that it's gonna work. But afterwards, Max is realizing, because he's been retired for a while. He got kicked out of the castle, 3 years ago? He's like, you know what? I think we only made a 45-minute pill.
And then there's an ongoing countdown about the pill compared to the time.
The three of them, Inigo, Fezzik, and the body of Wesley, are on the top of the castle wall looking down at the guards, which have been doubled. I mean, it's insane, the guard to prevent this wedding, or to protect this wedding, to protect the princess, who the prince is planning to kill anyway. It's this whole fabrication. But they're looking down, and they give Wesley this pill. And it works right away. And yes, as the next hour goes by, there's a countdown to the wedding, and a countdown to when the pill will end, and a countdown to when they think the pill will end. These are 3 different times. It's all wonderfully constructed, though.
It is. And Inigo is explaining to Wesley what's going on. The Buttercup's going to get married, the timing, and he says he needs Wesley to come up with a plan. And Wesley doesn't think he can. He's like, no, if I had a month to plan, maybe I'd come up with something, but he can't do it right here. He asked them for what their liabilities and assets are. You know, what things do we have? And he gets told Inigo steel, Fezzik strength, and then his brains. That's it. That's all they've got. And it is so great because then he says, man, if only we had a wheelbarrow. Oh, yeah, we got a wheelbarrow.
Yeah, we could do that.
Why didn't you list that among our assets in the first place? He's angry at them for not mentioning the wheelbarrow. And then it's these random things. It's the wheelbarrow, but then the Holocaust cloak. Holocaust cloaks, I did a little bit of research on, and I think it's basically made up for this story as well. It's essentially a big black cloak, think Grim Reaper sort of thing, but that is impervious to fire. It either has a spell or something within it that's impervious to fire. And again, Fezzik had used one to gather some of the materials for the pill.
Frog dust.
And so he's got it.
There are very specific ingredients we were skipping over. Sorry.
No, that's great. And so with all these now, Wesley has a plan.
And the countdown continues to the wedding, and there's screaming that starts outside the gate as the wedding commences. And Buttercup smiles. This whole time, she is fully confident Wesley is going to save her prior to the wedding. At this point, she knows the prince is terrible. I don't think she knows or cares that he's planning to kill her. She's planning it. She told him that if she married him, she would be dead by morning. That's her plan. Mm-hmm. She will not be married to this man. But she smiles softly when screaming starts at the gate.
Yeah. Now, can we say with the wedding ceremony, because this was something I wondered when I was going to read it, anyone who has watched the movie, which you all have now because we've told you to do it several times.
We're very bossy this time.
The scene that I'm sure you remember more than any other is the priest who steps up and says, marriage.
Also in the book, I too wondered. He spells it out.
I was so
Brings
excited to
us
see
together today. And where they skip ahead, where Prince Humperdinck says man and wife, say man and wife. So the priest says man and wife. And the wedding's done.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're screaming outside the gate with all those guards because a man is approaching them on fire. It says it was only when the giant got halfway down the incline that he suddenly, happily burst into flame and continued his trip, saying, "No survivors," in a manner that could only indicate deadly sincerity.
Everyone runs. You've got a burning giant coming at you with no survivors. Everyone flees, except for Yellen, that guy we talked about earlier, who's the captain of the guard. Because fortunately, he stayed, and he's got the key. He doesn't want to give it away at first, but when they tell Fezzik to rip his arms off, he changes his mind, and he hands over the key, and our heroes are able to now enter the castle. Meanwhile, the wedding is over. Prince Humperdinck is off to do what he's going to do, and Rugen now has a set of guards around him, and he is coming out to face these intruders.
Well, the prince is off to create Gilder boot prints in the garden.
He's got a plan.
To look like Gilder killed his new wife. It's very complicated. He's such a crazy guy. Crazy gross. Yes, and Count Rugen heads out with guards, and here's where they happen across Inigo.
This is the moment Inigo has been training for years, since he was that 10-year-old little boy. And the Count doesn't really recognize him. He thinks he kind of should recognize him, but he sends his guards after them. They are no match for Inigo. He instantly dispatches them all. And here is where Inigo gets to say the line. "Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die."
In reply, the Count did a genuinely remarkable and unexpected thing. He turned and ran. Inigo is shocked that the Count runs like a coward.
That was not what he was expecting.
It takes him a moment, and then he chases after him. The problem is he gets locked outside of a door. We already know Fezzik can break down doors, but Wesley's still super weak. There's a lot going on in this castle.
Yes, there is. But Inigo gives the line that Fezzik can't ignore. "I need you." And Fezzik has a friend who needs him, and so he steps up. He leaves Wesley there, and he goes to break the door down, which he does easily. Actually, this one isn't easy. He has to do it several times, doesn't he?
It takes a full charge after a couple tries. Like, this is a serious door that he's behind. But he does take care of it for his friend. But when he gets back to Wesley, because Inigo says, run back, go back to Wesley, he's not there. And poor Fezzik, he calls himself stupid. He punishes himself. And he says, Fezzik could feel the panic starting inside him. There's half a dozen possible corridors. Which, trying to figure it out. You'll pick the wrong one knowing you. He's talking to himself. And then he took a corridor, started hurrying along it as fast as he could. And he did pick the wrong one. So Inigo continues down through this door that Fezzik just burst down for him. And he's gaining on the Count. It says he can start to see the Count ahead of him, going around, running down hallways, going through doorways. But at one of them, the Count has stopped, pulled a bad guy dagger, a Florinese dagger. They describe it quite thoroughly, where it's a triangle, so it bleeds more as it goes in. The Count throws it at Inigo as he's charging after him in the belly.
And he's down. He's on the floor, and there is blood pouring out of him. And Inigo believes he has now failed. He has trained so hard, worked so hard, and he has failed. But he's not done yet. And it describes in the book how Inigo takes his fist and literally puts it inside him, this huge gaping hole on the inside, to try and stop the bleeding.
He learned that from McPherson.
McPherson, so helpful.
the Scottish trainer who just put him through misery, man. Saves his life right here. It says the dagger had rearranged his insides. So yes, he yanks it out and sticks his fist in his gut.
Meanwhile, Count Rugen comes to gloat over this man who believes he has now killed. And he goes to stab him in the heart. But Inigo still has his sword in his hand, and he's able to deflect the stab. It still stabs him, but not in the heart. It stabs him in the shoulder. That's not really a problem. Stabs him again. Again, he's able to deflect it. But this time, it goes again into a shoulder and not into his heart. And then he keeps thinking about all these things McPherson taught him. And his back is against a wall, so he starts to use the wall to back up, to stand up. And he starts to regain his strength, and that fire within him of revenge comes out. And he starts to say his line over and over, and he starts to fight again with one hand inside and one hand in his marvelous six-fingered sword.
It says Inigo shoved his fist deeper into himself. Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Here Inigo slips in his own blood and says the line again, and he digs his fist in deeper, and he advances on Count Rugen, and there's suddenly a cut down one side of Count Rugen's cheek. Another flash of his sword. Another cut, parallel bleeding. He scars the Count in the same way that the Count had scarred his own face. And he says the line again. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. And I love this. The Count says, stop saying that.
It's getting to him.
But Inigo matches the wounds that this man has given him. He matches the scars on his cheeks. He matches the wounds in his shoulder. And then he matches what the Count did to him. First he asks for money. He's like, offer me money. Offer me power. Make me all the promises. Anything you want. But Inigo cuts the Count to the left of his heart. And then just below his heart. And he asks the Count, can you guess what I'm doing? Cutting my heart out. He's matching the wounds that Count gave him. You took mine when I was 10. I want yours now. We are lovers of justice, you and I. What could be more just than that?
And down goes the Count. He kills him, and this line afterwards is great. Inigo looked down at him. The Count's frozen face was petrified and ashen, and the blood still poured down the parallel cuts. His eyes bulged wide, full of horror and pain. It was glorious if you like that kind of thing. Inigo loved it. I'm not usually a fan of revenge, but that's quite a scene.
It's the coolest killing scene ever.
Well, now we flip over to our other hero, Wesley. What is Wesley doing now that he's abandoned by Fezzik? Where did he go? Well, there's only one place Wesley would ever go. He goes to find Buttercup.
Keep in mind, he's got a clock on him. And it's shorter than he thinks it is. And he's still very weak, but he can walk in this. And he ends up in the room, and Prince Humperdinck comes in, and Wesley stops the prince, who has a sword in his hand. He says, I'm going to tell you something once, and then whether you die or not is strictly up to you. What I'm going to tell you is this: drop your sword, and if you do, you will be tied up, but not fatally, and will be soon free to go about your business. And if you choose to fight, well then, we will not both leave alive. But the prince saw him dead. He knows he's got to be weak. He said, I think you're bluffing.
And Wesley's whole encounter here with the prince is just great. This is where the prince says that they're going to fight to the death. And Wesley responds, no, to the pain. This confuses the prince. The prince asks, what's going on with that? He doesn't really understand. And then Wesley starts to talk. The first thing that you lose will be your feet, Wesley said. The left, then the right, below the ankle. You will have stumps available to use within 6 months. Then your hands at the wrist. They heal somewhat quicker. 5 months is a fair average. Next, your nose. No smell of dawn for you. Followed by your tongue, deeply cut away. Not even a stump left. And then your left eye. And then my right eye. And then my ears. Shall we get on with it, the prince said. Wrong, Wesley's voice rang across the room. Your ears you keep, so that every shriek of every child at seeing your hideousness will be yours to cherish. Every babe that weeps in fear at your approach, and every woman that cries, Dear God, what is that thing, will reverberate forever with your perfect ears. That is what to the pain means. It means that I leave you to live in anguish, in humiliation, in freakish misery until you can stand it no more. So there you have it, pig. There you know, you miserable vomitous mass. And I say this now, and live or die is up to you. Drop your sword. The sword crashed to the floor.
This is also when Wesley's clock is up in this. The pill runs out at this moment. It says his eyes roll up into his head, his body crumples, and the prince dies for his sword. And Wesley wakes up and says, now you will suffer to the pain. The prince is terrified. He drops it. Buttercup ties him up. And Inigo comes in, and Wesley is weak, but somehow he's still breathing.
Yeah, somehow he's alive. And he was totally bluffing this whole time, which is awesome. And Humperdinck later says, you were bluffing. I was right for the first time. He's excited that he was able to catch that. But Inigo is able to come in and join them. So now we have Inigo, Wesley, and Buttercup all together, and they're able to try and make their escape. But they're still in the castle, and things are still pretty dangerous, even if Humperdinck is tied up and the Count is dead.
But they hear Fezzik. He says, Inigo, I need you, please. Inigo, I'm lost and miserable and frightened, and I just need to see a friendly face. Fezzik had to decide what to do on his own, and he knew he'd do it wrong, and he's calling for his friends. But then Inigo looks out the window. Fezzik took the 4 white horses. I always wondered where they came from in the movie. These are the prince's amazing horses, faster than anything. They're used to bareback riding. Fezzik found them. And he's like, just jump down. No problem. Come one at a time. It'll be fine.
There is one more scene in here that is not in the movie that I really enjoyed, because all those guards that ran away from the front gate, they're still there. They came back, and Yellen is there, and the guards are there, and there's, 100 of them against these 4. But Buttercup gets her moment to be awesome here. And she tells them to go rescue the prince. And she does it with the authority that she is the queen. And she pulls it off. And I think that's great.
Says, I am the queen. There is no doubting her sincerity or power or capability for vengeance. She stared imperiously across the brood squad. And they run to save Humperdinck.
All I can say is, I'm impressed, Wesley told her.
She's like, I've been going to royalty school. She's not just useless. Not just a pretty face. So she saves them here at the end. The end of this is a little bizarre, I got to tell you. If you read the book, I just don't want you to be surprised, because he keeps going. He kind of leads it into the idea of a sequel. But I think we should end it the same way that our author's father ended it. So Buttercup's worried that they're doomed to die because there's still the prince after them. He's still alive. And she says, "It seems that we're doomed." "Doomed, madam?" Wesley asks. "To be together until one of us dies." Wesley says, "I've done that already, and I haven't the slightest intention of ever doing it again." And she asks him, "Don't we sort of have to sometime?" "Not if we promise to outlive each other, and I make that promise now." Buttercup looked at him. "Oh, my Wesley, so do I." And then the father interrupts, who's reading. He says, "And they lived happily ever after." "Wow," I said. The kid says, "Wow." He's like, "You're not pleased?" No, it's just, it came so quick, the ending. It surprised me. I thought there'd be a little more is all. I mean, was the pirate ship waiting, or was that just a rumor? Complained to Mr. Morgenstern. "And they lived happily ever after" is how it ends.
And with that, we'll turn the page, and we hope you join us for the next chapter.
Quick disclaimer for the grapplers in the audience. While The Princess Bride describes the rear naked choke as crushing the windpipe, in real life, a rear naked choke is actually a blood choke. It restricts blood flow to the brain. So if the anatomy is a little off, don't blame us. Blame Morgenstern.